I'll start the recording as well. So that is going on. I think I have the live badge, right?
Let me check my Zoom.
No one that we might be expecting. I'll invite a couple of people.
I'm not sure if VR exists, for example. Did Madra say he would come?
I didn't get like positive confirmations from many people, so I think Turk said he might. I think Enderek said he also might. So I don't know. I sent Turk an invite. In fact, I might just hop into his world and ask if he wants to join us.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, yeah, there's a few people in there.
The direct message might work as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good shout.
I'm sure not.
Although he's got the like red border around his avatar, so I think that means they're busy, so maybe you don't get
Entirely possible.
It is. And also, I heard you say thank you again.
You know, with the number of avatars who've joined, I'm still getting exactly 26 frames per second. So it's... I think the avatar load has done basically nothing in this world. I feel like it hasn't reduced it at all, which is good.
I think my one isn't horribly bad. Let's see, what am I on? 60 odd, my swap. And yeah, still 61. Okay, maybe it kills a frame. So
You're at 60 FPS? Holy crap.
yeah.
Why is my FPS so much worse than yours?
Alright, I think I have...
What headset or computer are we dealing with?
Vive, and the processor is one of the Ryzen 9s, and the GPU is a 2070 Ti.
What? Yours should be as good as, if not better than mine.
Yeah, I'm getting 26 FPS. Or granted, I am recording at the same time, so that's probably not helping.
Oh, yeah, I think Ricky says that normally, like, streaming normally kills his frames.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
Well, in this case, it's staying in the world. It's just recording to a drive, so we can upload it later.
I'm like a 5-year-old. Yeah, it's
Alright.
like you gotta teach me as if I'm like a baby. You gotta like hold my hand and be like, you see this?
We managed to double book.
Nesmatic, you are upside down.
We managed to double book ourselves.
Oh, he's talking to his students on Zoom.
Ah,
Wants
okay.
to see if we can get them into Neos.
Oh, fun.
Sit there.
Looked like someone decapitated him and turned him over.
Yeah, that's talent right there.
Then you have a chance to introduce the VR team.
If need be, let me know if I need to switch to a more optimized model. Even though I'm like pretty optimized. I have like 80 something dollars.
I mean, I don't think... Like, I've lost a total of, like, 3 frames since everyone has joined, so I don't think it's a problem. Like, I don't think avatar models are really the issue anymore. I think that a lot of the optimizations have made them basically not a problem.
Okay.
Like,
Hey, Joris, how you doing? How much did, like, the optimization,
Nice seeing you all together again.
Like, I don't know
Oh,
what...
thank you. Yeah, that's a whole big group, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like for the MMC watch party, we had like 22 people just in the HQ, and we were just, it was like a good time. So, off of just me without a headless. So, I think that's not too bad. Oh, yeah.
And he's making it better.
I'm just gonna check on my drive storage real quick.
Can I interrupt you guys very, very quickly? Just one. I sound a little stressed because. Yeah, well, I think I can't avoid it, but just for 30 seconds, I've got the students from one of our projects called the Daliel Talented Student Program students who are doing a VR project in which they hope to try and raise awareness of environmental concern and action using VR as a sort of exposure thing where we might, flood cities and say, well, this is what it would be like if the sea was 2 meters higher. Do you really want the sea to be 2 meters high? But anyway, that's an ultra simplification. But I thought what would be cute is because we so happen to have double booked by accident, they are on Zoom right now. So they are on Zoom watching my live feed, and if I switch to smooth POV, this is my opportunity to say, so this is what it looks like in the metaverse the rest of the time, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, a bowing 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have, you know, a dozen people. There's one floating over there in the background, and I saw someone flying outside there. So we've got a dozen people here in the metaverse, all of whom are able to interact and talk and communicate and potentially answer questionnaires. Tick, tick, tick. And they are in various countries, so there should be quite an interesting range of attitudes towards climate change. For example, I know for a fact that if we had Outsider here, he would say with a completely straight face that the whole thing is a hoax, and it's something to do with the sun has flares and the flares and all. So you would get some really interesting data if you were able to mine a group of people from every country and every walk of life and within the limits. Obviously, all these people are obviously fairly well off. They can all afford thousands of dollars worth of VR gear, so I wouldn't say it's a cross-section of the entire... But it is a more variable group than you would get if you only tested first-year psychology students, which is what we normally do. So thank you very much, everyone. I just wanted to introduce you all to the students. You see, they're all waving from 10 different countries, so that's kind of cute, basically. And dancing, and even dancing. All right, so hopefully that works. Did that work? Oh, excellent. All right, so now you've seen what it looks like in the metaverse the rest of the time. Total chaos, basically, a bit like herding cats, where you try and get a dozen people from a dozen countries, all of whom have superpowers and can fly and burn the place down, or instantly transform into a dragon and, you know, just become the size of Godzilla. And so it usually gets a little bit messy fairly quickly. People are on their best behaviours for EDU meetings, where we even often make a bunch of chairs and we ask people to sit down and keep still and just talk instead of burning the world. But I thought that was, because we're accidentally double booked, I thought that was worth at least giving you a little taste of what it looks like out there.
I think we have a Pokeball eye that can actually capture the entire world. So I mean that's a scenario that wasn't mentioned.
Well, that's one of the dangerous superpowers that I'm referring to, where things can get through. Oh, there's another one, so you can see people are madly arriving. I don't want to hijack either Joris's presentation or our Daliel meeting, so I'll stop this Zoom connection now. You guys can get on with discussing what Daliel program is up to, and Joris can introduce his virtual world that he's prepared for this big demonstration. And I don't think we can do both, so nice to see you. Thanks a lot for checking in, Sabine.
Dream coming to fruition, you know. So yeah, I felt very nostalgic. Yeah.
Right, good.
It was really nice.
I had another person that was also.
I feel way out of my league in here right now.
Oh, really?
I'm like a monkey. I'm like a monkey with like a
It's not even over. One more outrageous request before we go to Joris as well. Can anybody have enough patience for another 10 seconds worth of performing monkey? Because I didn't actually anticipate any of this. This was Joris. I needed an initial world. I was going to ask you, could you all jump into one of these avatars, one of these emergency services avatars? Push your avatar down into the floor so I can take a little tiny bit of people waving as if I've got emergency services.
Yeah, I don't think we have permission to in this world.
Stand by. I'll get that sorted.
As we are a spectator, probably.
Makes sense for this world.
Sessions.
I'll inhabit this fireman.
Permissions. Alright, so now everybody should have permissions now.
There we go. Oh,
There you go.
oh, that's
excellent.
that needs some clipping range trimmed in.
Okay.
This is great because, you know, the other day I tried to show this world, but it was very dead. No one was, you know, there were nobody in the avatars. So if you guys can each jump, excellent. Now this is looking good.
Do you want to take the camera for the recording meeting?
Drop to the floor.
Look, I'm a doctor, okay?
Yeah, you look very healthy.
Mom is proud of me. Look, I started off as a ballerina, and I said, okay, maybe this isn't the thing for me, so I became a doctor.
Alright, so good, we've got a medical professional. So alright, if everybody wouldn't mind sort of coming to the foreground so I can take a tiny bit of video of you all waving to suggest, you know, this is real humans, it's not necessarily a bunch of dead avatars, which is the only thing I've been able to show you now.
I wasn't paid. I wasn't paid to be here. I don't want to hear it.
You're going to build a new Frankenstein, I think.
I'll diagnose you all. Don't make me.
You got a license for that?
Alright, and the last wave. Hey. From the Response Innovation Centre, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people from 10 countries logging in to improve emergency response for Australia and the world. Thank you very much. Okay, now we go to Joris's world.
Okay.
Which should be running on your table. If we think it's time, what time? Yes, it's 11 past. Are you ready to switch to your world, Joris?
I surely hope you got a license for that jacket.
Oh my god.
So on your, you might as well go back to your tables and find the world which is called 36Q Blue. Something
Our
else.
VR, London, final, optimized sort of thing, yes.
I'm so confused.
But if you search for
Oh, I see it.
36Q, you will find it.
It's
hold on.
it's a headless server.
On where?
Okay, can somebody, you can't. Nobody can drop session orbs.
I'll
This is what if I'm dumb.
I'll drop one.
There's a chance I'm just really dumb.
Here's
and
session
I
orb.
might not, like... Okay.
Right here.
Let me get my model.
This is,
My model's over here.
There's a
Hold on.
chance.
There's a
I
chance.
have a computer here right now, so I'm just gonna. Okay, here we go.
Initializing worlds.
Alright, now this is going to be much more normal.
And now I get to load in all my assets.
I'll have you know, I am a MD in diagnosing.
A professional medical diagnoser.
That was shameless, but when Joris said he wanted a starting world, I just couldn't resist, basically.
Yes, I think that was a very focused and organized starting of the session.
Well,
But also a
we're
great
starting
way
as
to-
we mean to go on, really, aren't we?
Right, exactly.
Alright, but now we come.
Cecil, you wanna just start sort of
Oh,
doing the
sure.
introduction, or?
Well, I mean, pretty much everyone either is here who I just literally told what it was before we jumped into the world, or has been here before. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously nice to see everyone again after we took a bit of a hiatus over the summer. Joris,
He exploded.
Oh. What?
so might wait for Joris to come back.
They'll fall through, right? Oh, okay.
I'm just gonna be doing Steadicam this whole time.
Hi, my name is Zeisel. Hi, Zeisel.
There he is.
Welcome-
Now he's straight back
Welcome
again.
back.
It's back now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I just
Popped up.
was
It's
thrown
not,
out.
it's not the headless, it's going like a train here, I think.
Yeah, well, thanks for agreeing to do our first session back. Hopefully this will be one of many more, and I'll need to talk particularly to Earthmark, Hamish and the others towards the end to see if we can set up some more sessions in the next week or two. But yeah, do you want to take us away, Joris?
Yes, absolutely. And so what I want to show you today is actually something that happened before. It was an event in Prague as part of the Prague quadrennial, and that's actually an exhibition that happens every 4 years. And then all countries comes together from the discipline of theater design and architecture. So artists who are busy with designing spaces, and they showcase their work, and both in the pavilions with like nations showing their work and a student competition and stuff like that. And one of the projects that they have within that quadrennial is called the 36Q project, and there's more like an experimental space where they want to sort of experiment with using media, using projection, using sound, so not have the traditional theater design as you might know it, like having a stage design design, but really take the space and take all sorts of media and technologies and experiment a little bit what kind of experiences you could make in that respect. Now, the reason I want to show you this is because the problem, of course, with events and with theater is that it's, of course, a time-based arts. So if you have been there, you have experienced it, but afterwards you only have the photos and the videos. And it never does justice to the experience of the space and the experience of the actual venue. So I thought how, as an experiment, to see if I could reproduce, not necessarily the actual experience, but rather take a more like spatial approach to, in a way, represent that event. And over here, I can just start this video so you have some idea of the actual venue. So here you see the space from the outside. It was in the summer, the festival, and in that summer there was like in Prague there was one of the hallways. There was an old ice skating hall. So it's a sports hall that is used for ice skating, ice hockey, I have to say. And you would enter that space. It was open for 10 days. People could just show up whenever they wanted. And they would go into the space, and into the space there was like a running presentation of a cycle of 24 minutes that was representing the 24 hours cycle of waking up, going through the day, and then the evening and falling asleep again. So the whole space was designed by several project groups. We had only 8 days, and the project groups were, for example, people who would do the light design, or people who would do the soundscape, or people who would do the projection mapping, or people who would do all sorts of weird little installations. And you see here the artistic lead was Romain Tardy. He's a well-known projection mapping artist and light design artist. And he decided to take the ice away, of course, obviously, and replace that with 36 water pools. Because water you can use to project on or in and work with light and steam and things like that in the space. But then the project groups, the workshop groups, also hijack those water pools to build little micro environments or to build some experiments. And I was leading the VR or a mixed reality project group. And we decided to take 4 of those pools and turn them into a mixed reality experience. So there you see one of the people standing with the VR helmet on. It's a 5 Pro. And it was inside of that room, and people could just say, hey, I want to have this experience. And it was a 10-minute experience, and they could put themselves on a list, and then when it was their turn, they could go in. Now, I think it's very important that you understand that the building that we're now entering was actually this is a digital reconstruction or representation of the actual physical building. So what I've done, I've made some 360 photos in the actual location, and you can see I've placed them throughout the space, so you can actually move in, and it's actually then in the place where I took that photo that you can see the photo in context of the actual architecture. So I will also every time pause the videos because of performance issues. Let's go in.
Dibs on the VR headset.
It looks to me like they had some pretty serious budget.
So
Just gonna do that for the
what was
recording.
really nice, I think.
They're still checking out the real life recreation of it outside there too.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I was hoping to also have almost like a day and night cycle also outside, because of course it was different going in with a bright summer day and then you would enter this dark space. But there's still some occlusion issues. As you can see, the light behaves a bit weirdly because I wanted to make this space really dark while it was like summery outside. But those are just technical things. I think what is important to say is that we're going to enter the space. We go through the stairs and stuff. So if you can stay in walking mode, that would do justice mostly to the actual experience. And but before you go downstairs, you can see here, if you click on that one, you can see the space while it was still being built up. So you get an impression on how we were building the space and how the venue was before it became like a multimedial or whatever you want to call it, mixed reality experience.
That's really cool.
All right.
to get darkness, I just delete the sun. But I mean, that's just how I.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be like next level programming, where you per person you have a different light situation on the basis where they are, whether they're inside or outside. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, Amphrex, I didn't recognize you with your nice new outfit. Hey.
I thought I'd modify it slightly for the meeting.
We're all dressed up for the meeting. That's really great. Okay, so let's go downstairs. So you would follow the stair down.
You put a suit on.
Oh, no railings.
Careful, don't fall.
I was in a suit. I had to change it.
Good. So what I've been doing is not necessarily try to reconstruct or make an exact copy of the experience, because that obviously is impossible. But what I did try to do is make some sort of weird mix between a making of exhibition, while also have elements that do justice to the virtual part of the experience that you could have when you would do mixed reality installation. And the soundscape that you hear is actually the soundscape that was also there back then in that space, cycling every 24 minutes, but I might pause it at some point because of sound. All right, so you also see there was a large I'll just pause it right now, or just
Seems like a time capsule.
Softer.
It's like a VR
it is
time
a bit
capsule.
like a time capsule. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And what you see is that there were like scaffolding structures built on both the sides of the room, and there was like we call it scrims, but they're transparent screens, so there was projection on that. And what I like to start with is actually the physical installation. So this is one of the pool setups as we imagined it to be. You also see some sketches in the background, because the weird thing was we had only 8 days to actually build the experience in the space. Now, I don't know if you have done any VR development, but I hope you understand that's not enough time to actually build a full mixed reality experience. So we start already weeks before, but the problem that we had is we couldn't work in the actual space. So one of our design challenges was, how do we design an experience for a space that is very site specific, as you call it, so really made for that particular location, while we can actually not work in the location. And I will get to that later a little bit more. But what I knew, at least what we knew, is that we didn't want to only have like a VR experience, but it would be already in an environment that is an experience. So we thought, okay, we need to make a physical installation, because when you enter this building, the experience already starts. So we had people like Bean, for example, says, great, I want to do the VR experience. And I say, okay, you put your name on the list and you can sit on the first chair, for example, as a just to wait for your turn. Maybe you can sit on that chair for a moment so I can illustrate how it works. And maybe Galvik said, oh, great, I want to go too. And then you can be on the second chair. And then I say, okay, so there you go. There's already 3 people waiting. Maybe you can look around and then come back later because we're already full. And so we had volunteers trying to negotiate, of course, this particular experience. Now, Bean, it's your turn, and I see you took your shoes off. That's really nice because I asked you to do so. And you have to be in bare feet. You have to be bare feet. So I'm really happy that you did that. So if you can get up. And come over here, just stand over there, yeah, and look towards the pool. So then there would be some instructions to people, because of course our target group was theater designers, and those people are really working about analog spaces, and they're not necessarily really like tech savvy, let alone VR specialists. So you have to explain a little bit, this is a helmet, and I'm going to take care of you, and you're going to be safe, and if you want to get out, etc., stuff like that. But so then we would help the person to put the VR helmet on. And the only instruction we would give is, you will see the virtual pool, and when you see the pool, you can actually pick up the little lantern. Now, and that is interesting because Bean is now actually standing outside of the physical pool. He is now having the VR helmet on, so he cannot see the physical installation anymore. But we made, as you can see now, because it's a bit of an Inception presentation right now, but we also had the digital representation of the same space in exactly the same location. So you could feel with your bare feet on the edge of this ledge, and you could physically step into the sand pool while you could also feel it with your feet. So there was like a physical confirmation of what you would see in the virtual world. Okay, let's walk over to the virtual experience.
There's a sphere around your head.
And so, Joris, was the lantern like something with a tracker on it, which then
yes.
being shown in VR as
I
well?
put a little five tracker on top of it just to indicate that. But you will see a lantern like this in VR, and I will just oh sorry, I have my I tried to hit right behind you actually, Cecil. Yeah, there you go. So then if you put the helmet on, you would see actually basically the room that you see now, but it was running in Unity. And you have to imagine, and you can see that maybe here's a little girl doing the installation, but of course there's all sorts of people walking around you, and so you're in a very busy room, and then you put the VR helmet on, you see the same installation, but there's nobody there but you. And then you can choose to step into the pool and basically pick up the lantern. Well, that's the wrong thing, but pick up the lantern. And this lantern would afford you to move the light in the virtual space, but it would also learn people that they could actually physically move around in that physical sand pool, and they would also be safe, because the sand pool I would always show throughout the experience. So you would visually know what the boundaries was of your play space, so to speak. And you generate a few particles. This is a very boring part of the experience, but it's just for people to get used to the experience. And I will just go a bit forward in the actual movie, if that button wants to work for me. No, it doesn't want to work. Well, as you notice, slowly but surely, we start to lift the virtual pool up into the virtual space, which is, you probably know, is exactly the thing you shouldn't do with people in VR. You shouldn't move them around while they're, because they will get very dizzy. So this is a design challenge. Like, how do I move a person around in a virtual space while they're physically standing still? And then you move to the light bridge. So in the physical space, there were lights shining towards each other. And the moment you arrive at that light bridge, the roof breaks open, and the whole building starts to deconstruct. So you have a physical remembrance of the physical building that you're in. Then you're in VR in a virtual representation of the same building, and we bring you physically almost to a place that you cannot reach with your physical body. And then we start to deconstruct the architecture of the building, because of course all these designers are really busy with space and how to construct space. So I thought it was sort of nice to show also the construction of the actual building. So I asked the blueprints of it was built in the 70s, so I asked the blueprints, and I reconstructed in 3D Studio Max the whole building, really according to the blueprints. So when I pull the whole thing apart, you can really look into the structure of the well, not the actual building, but the virtual representation. Then we open up the roof, and then you start to move up. And the theme of the whole project was Blue Hour, and Blue Hour is this particular moment when you're at sea, when you don't see the difference between the sky and the sea. And it's like this moment in time in the evening where you cannot distinguish anymore what's what. So as you see, we now move from a like real-time 3D environment more towards a 360 video environment, but we maintained the three-dimensional representation of the physical pool, because people would then still feel happy to move around while they're actually in a 360 movie at some point. So then it gets dark, and we introduce what I call portals, which is of course for us in Neos the most normal thing in the world, but for anybody living in the normal world and has never done before done any VR, a portal is a bit of a hard concept to explain. So there's from your light orb, there's now orbs emerging, and those represent 4 different videos. And there were video poems made by my colleague, Canadian digital sonographer called Paul Sagis, and he traveled around the world and made 4 different 360 video poems representing the different stages of the year. So we had autumn, we had winter, we had spring and summer. And now I had the next design challenge. So my question was, how do I get people to stick their heads inside of these portals without me having a plate saying you can stick your head inside of this portal, or like having an arrow, like, you know, you have, or literally telling them you can stick your head inside of the portal. So one of the other design challenges we had is, how do we get people to figure this out themselves without any experience in VR or understanding what a portal really is? Now, another thing is that, of course, we had like, I think in the end, 500 people going through this experience in a 10-day cycle. So we had like a lot of people going through it. So we also couldn't afford people staying in for an hour because there were so many other people already waiting. So we had the challenge that we didn't want to force them to say, you have to move forward, you have to do this to continue the experience, but at the same time they want to have a sense of agency, so it matters what they do, while also it needs to always be an arc of 10 minutes. So that was another design challenge that we had. Now here you see a video poem of the summer that Paul shot in Venice. Actually, when we showed it in Prague, there were, of course, the floods, so talking about environmental changes. Image, we were sort of mildly inspired by this, like, environmental themes as well, but very mildly. And at some point in the video experience, which is in a way a passive experience, you're just a spectator, but you could still walk around in that pool. And at some point in that experience, I have to go forward a little bit. I hope this button wants to work with me for a moment. Not really.
Can you click in the timeline to make it jump to a new position?
No,
Does that
unfortunately you can't. These are the move forward things are the only ones that seem to work. But close to the end of the video, there is a bubble emerging in your field of vision. And that bubble is something you cannot choose. It comes at you, and it comes actually. It moves in the direction of the position of your head and basically takes over. You look very cute together, by the way, Rukio and Princess. So there's a little video bubble that emerges, and it moves towards your head. So these were design choices we made to force people to move on in the experience, basically. Let's see if the button works now. Otherwise, we just move on. It's just fine. Oh, there it is. And this is a very strange experience because it's also very nice to see people from the outside trying to evade or move away from that bubble. So people were really like doing a lot of physical effort to not be hit by this weird bubble. And then you see a Zamboni wiping the ice clean. So it's a little joke, but it's also a little reference to the actual nature of the building. And then you return back to the virtual representation of the building that you came from. But now the roof is fallen, it's raining, there's moss on the floor. So you entered sort of like this post-apocalyptic or post-human times. And then if you stand there long enough, you will see the titles saying that we made it, which are the titles behind me. So that is also then an indication that the experience was over, and then the assistant comes and take the helmet off. So that's basically the arc of the virtual experience. And the interesting thing is that when people would take their helmets off, of course, some of them were really, for some reason, taken by the experience, especially what they would call the ascension. So when it was lifting through the roof, people had very profound experiences. So the nice thing was they could return to the chair to put their shoes on, but they really wanted to share their experience. They really wanted to talk and say what they felt about it and how they had the whole experience happening to them, etc. So again, you know, when you make experiences that are mixed reality experiences, it's not just about what happens when you have the helmet on, but it's also how people get into the experience, but also afterwards, they were still in this space and mulling over everything that they'd gone through. So I thought that was a very interesting aspect of the installation as well. So, but like I said in the beginning, we had a problem. We had only 8 days to build this thing. So we had to basically prepare everything for this space weeks before. And for that, I had made a list or a trick, which is this. what we did is we rebuilt at scale in a studio, a theater studio in the Netherlands. Paul came over when there was no corona yet. And we taped in the floor. We taped the pool size, so to speak. And those dotted lines are the imaginary portal circles. And we decided to sort of puppeteer or prototype the experience while we haven't even programmed anything yet. So I had the virtual building in Unity, and then we made controls. So somebody was sitting here. There's supposed to be a character here, but I don't know where it went. But somebody was sitting here, and he would have like a MIDI controller and triggering all sorts of events, like the how do you call it? The pool going up, the opening of the roof. All these things were actually live puppeteered in an engine, and then somebody would give feedback and say, okay, yeah, this, oh, no, not so fast, I'm getting dizzy, or can you slow down a little bit, or wait with the roof, because I was just still looking down. So all these things we could design from experience without needing to first code everything, but just by doing puppeteering techniques. And of course then we would swap roles. So one of us would be the experiencer, one of us would be the operator or puppeteer, and one of us would be sort of like the director or technical dramaturg thinking about the consequences for the actual artistic idea. Now, to sort of showcase this a little bit, I made a little prototype in Neos so I can show some of you how this works. So if you're all in walk mode, I can ask maybe 3 of you to be inside of the pool. If you want. Only if you want.
He's doing his signature walk
Stay
to
focused.
get there, yes.
So the first thing I made is a slider where you now can see how it feels if the roof opens up. Yeah? So then we can really think about how fast or how slow should that happen. And also, of course, I could already move you to the light bridge.
Equally, I'm sure Joris would have to. Oh,
so there you go. Maybe a bit higher up. I don't know if you're getting there.
Sorry.
Oh, that's a bit fast. So you could literally give feedback, like if it would be too fast or too slow, and then you would stand there and the roof would go open like this. And I lost my trigger here. And then, of course, like I showed you, the whole building starts to deconstruct. So the building opens up, and the roof opens. And now, so now you have more like an experiential idea on how this works, but you can also live prototype it still together. So I have another slider here where I will move you guys up to the next phase, the blue hour phase. And then we can all together, maybe who are still down there, choose flying mode or no clip mode, and we can follow them. So here we are. So now there's the phase with the portals. So then the question was, how do we deal with these portals? How do we make it in such a way that you can actually you feel naturally inclined to experience the portals and look into them. So I've made some fake portals there, and I can vary, for example, the scale. And if I would now say, could you look into the portals? How does that work for you?
Looks like I'm 100% gonna fall off, but...
Yeah, like...
I think there's actually a collision for it. It's slightly bigger, but... Yeah, don't worry.
Oh,
hey,
there he goes.
There you go. Oh, there he goes. But I think what is interesting, what we noticed, for example, is when we have the portals the way they are.
He's not very good at this subject. Cute.
I noticed that if you make them too big, people are not going to move towards them because they're big enough. So they feel like mirrors or windows. So people are basically saying, I'm going to stand in the middle. I can see everything, so it's perfectly fine. So one of the things we noticed is that they have to be a bit smaller. Now another thing we noticed is the height, because we first had them at eye height, but if you look them down, you have to, in a way, move your body to see them, like you're doing, all together. See? And when you're physically moving, people start to realize they're portals, because they don't behave actually as mirrors anymore, because they can see more. They can almost like look into it. So then we can also move them in or outwards. And the very first thing I did, for example, is I had the portal move towards people if they would move towards the portal. Earthmark, you have some interesting resonance happening.
Your desktop is yelling at you, Earth. Oh,
Sounds like a microwave.
Cool. Talking about mixed reality. Okay, I imagine now you being in the garage. That's great. All right. Well, anyway, so
you need to slide a slider, and then you'll have the sound effect for free.
Yeah, or there's some magical garage door appearing. I don't know. Yeah. So one of the things, for example, we did is the very first thing I animated was the portal to emerge and come at you if you would lean into it. And the very first thing when Paul was actually experiencer is we both thought that would be the perfect interaction. But when the portal came at him, his body really wanted to move away from it because it was too big. And it felt like it would almost attack him. So this is like embodied knowledge that you cannot predict if you are designing something beforehand. And so this is actually, and with that I can sort of round it up for now, but this is what I want to also offer as an idea to my students, of course, and in the way of designing VR experiences or mixed reality experiences, is to have like this prototyping space, of course, where you can live puppeteer these interactions before you turn them into algorithms and stuff like that. So with that, I think that is basically what I wanted to show you guys and present to you. And for me now, Neos, of course, is a wonderful environment to show it to you guys. So you've never been in that Prague installation, and still I'm sure that you now have a better idea how it was than if I would show you just a YouTube film, right? So also from this idea of like an exhibition or maybe an archive or maybe showing a bit the process, I'm really now looking for hybrid forms. It's not pretending to be the exact experience because it's not, but it also is not the same as just a video registration or just an article or just a text. And we talked about this a long while ago, is that I also find this interesting from a scientific publication point of view, is that I consider this world to be a publication. The academic world doesn't agree with me yet. That's going to take a bit of persuasion, obviously. But I already had an international conference. Hey, Nex. I had an international conference where I live streamed this presentation through Zoom, through all sorts of academics, and they could ask questions. And also through the Twitch chat, they could ask all sorts of questions about how it worked. And afterwards I said, so do you consider this to be a publication and an academic presentation? And most people said, this is very interesting because it gave an insight into this experience that text might not have covered, might not have, offered. So also to some of you who are into academic publications and stuff, I would really like to brainstorm, maybe not now, but in a session, how Neos can also become a place not only for like life experiences or social experiences, but also as a forum to archive and publish certain knowledge that we gain through the experiments that we've done. So it's a prototype, it's an exhibition, but it's also maybe a publication. So that is also stuff I'm now trying to figure out. It's so funny seeing all you all in this. Yeah. Sorry, next.
Plus, with a form of like using VR for education, it's like right now it's very early because one step above, schools like using like videos or something like that, or realizing that form of medium is actually way better for learning than for like reading a textbook. And it's like we're not utilizing the technology right now that we should be, to where technology is advancing to where we could actually incorporate that inside of the educational field, which is sad. And people want to be, pull back and want to be like, oh no, this is how we've done it for hundreds of years and it must stay exactly the way that's been. It's like, it's that's sometimes can be problems with, you know.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I completely agree, and probably everybody here agrees with that, and that's why we're here. And I think what is really nice, as we speak, there's now 9 game and interaction and theater students working in NEOS as a project, and they will start making. They're already making prototypes, and they're quite experimental. I have to tell you, they're also very chaotic and weird. But they're going to probably start presenting some prototypes around and about at the end of November. So if any of you is interested to see that and to be there, let me know, because I can then send you an invite, or I just throw it on the Discord channel. And I showed the students, for example, this space as an example of how they can archive their research. So they're now all building their own, where they're all their sketches and their photos and their post-it notes and their video recordings of physical prototypes, they're now putting into space. So they're learning also to make an exhibition and to make some sort of coherent archive, and then through that also learning NEOS, and in that understand that there's also experiential aspects like prototypes they can use to convey certain information that you cannot capture in text only. So and those are third year bachelor students, so they're also very young and figuring this out. So it's not like super advanced, but I think it's nice. They're already doing very interesting experiments. So.
And it can save them a lot of money. Really can.
Sorry?
So to carry around your portfolio on a quest instead of a big, leather-bound folder.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. Yeah.
Magic.
So if there's any questions, we can also move out of this bubble again, although it's quite cozy. But if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them. But we can also maybe progress into more like a discussion on what's next. But this is at least what I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much for your attention and being here. It's just really nice. It makes me feel really good that you're all here.
Thank you, Joris. Yep. Thank you.
I
missed everything. Nice.
This is honestly really cool, because like you said, I went from being outside of a building to actually feeling like it's almost like a memory, as if I was here when it was being constructed. The people were down there, like you said, through experience, having how everything's gonna be programmed and how the events are all gonna go. It almost feels like I was at this event and able to kind of like see how you guys worked on it, and then how the ending presentation was, especially with how we had something like this.
Well, thank you. And by the way, one more thing that is very important to tell is that I talked about the challenge of people getting dizzy when I would move them around in VR. We had this hypothesis that if people would have bare feet...
You guys are quiet, please.
Sorry. Yeah, I will not take long, but it's just there's a final thing that I forgot to share with you, is that we asked people to take off their shoes, and they were standing in sand. And my expectation that would be that out of the 500 people that gone through this installation, at least a third would halfway take their helmets off and say, this is too much, I cannot handle this. If that's the first time in VR and you start moving them around through the space, you can be assured that at least like 30 to 40% says, that's too much. Interestingly, I had maybe out of the 500, maybe 8 or 9 people who halfway said, I cannot handle this. And it wasn't always because of dizziness, but for all sorts of other reasons that, people have all sorts of reactions to VR anyway. And we really thought about it for a while, because we had this hypothesis that the sand would work, but it's also counterintuitive because sand is a very unstable surface. So you would think it even make you more unstable being on physical sand. But our hypothesis right now is you constantly have to recalibrate standing on the sand. So you're really staying in your body, because your body is constantly trying to recalibrate itself on this unstable surface. So the dizziness was compensated with a body awareness because of the sand textures. And people have reported all sorts of interesting sensations that really weren't there. So the summer experience, for example, they said, and the sand really became warm. How did you do that? And I'm like, we didn't. and also there's the winter one is in the snow. People were reporting winds. They were reporting all sorts of stuff. So it's very interesting. And this is also, I wrote an article about it. The physiological aspect, even if you know it's not real, is so strong in these kind of experiences. I don't have to tell you that, but I tell my students now more and more and say, hey, it's part of your design. You have to take that into account. You can really work with that, how your body responds to all these sensations. So that's in the little. Now that I see you sitting in the sand, it was really wonderful. But being in the space, I mean, there's a little spotlight also on the people in the physical space, so they become very performative. It was also a joy and interesting to watch people being in VR because they look also very fragile in a way. Because in a way you make them deaf and blind. You know, they're almost like handicapped in the physical space. But they look really beautiful in those pools. And I've seen people just standing in the middle with their lantern, like frozen, only looking around like this. I've seen people lying down, which was a bad idea with the VR in the sand, with the helmet and everything, but they did it. And I saw people just climbing and jumping in and out of the pool and everything in between. So it's quite amazing how different people behaved. But nevertheless interesting to design an installation for.
There was a wired headset that you were using, is that right?
It was a 5 Pro with the wireless system, yeah. And I completely underestimated the amount of batteries that you need for that. So you're gonna have that running. Yeah, we ended up with loading and docking stations, like, you know, because it was running for 10 hours a day, and we had volunteers with no technical know-how whatsoever. So we really had to improvise a lot to make sure that those things kept working for sure. Yeah, those are the things that you don't really think of beforehand.
So we're going to be using a cord for next time? Or are you going to still stay with where?
Actually, the wireless made a huge difference because I'm now doing actually a project with the theater group in Berlin, and that is wired. And I just did an interview. We did improvisation sessions, also partly in Neos. And one of the first things they said, I feel so constricted by this wire that I don't feel I can improvise freely enough because I constantly have this wire awareness and I'm limited while it's such an expansive space and I want to move around. So no, wireless for me would definitely make a huge difference. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's worth it.
Understandable.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
And then you have to account for
do you
like
also
people.
do installations that have no sort of real-world current that are just strictly synthetic?
Actually, we can go down for a moment. I showed this installation also in Helsinki. If you follow me.
Oh.
I'm down here. Yeah. Now for something completely different. I gave this is actually a presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation. It's very boring. Sorry, we go outside for a moment again because this photo really shows. I showed the same installation in a gallery in Helsinki, and you see here people just there's no physical pool. There's no like the multimedial environment that you step into. I had this very lame little monitor there in the back showing like some of the video of that space, trying to get people to understand that was really not there. And to my surprise, actually, I think I had let's see, it was like for also 10 days. I think altogether, maybe 50 people have seen this particular piece. When I was there, I've seen maybe 12 to 15 people, and out of those 15, indeed 5 halfway took the helmet off and said, I need to sit down. They got completely dizzy, right? Which you would say is really then actually a confirmation that the physical sand pool really had a purpose in, keeping people stable and embodied. So it's actually nice that this out. We knew it would already not work, but just to try it out and see it not work was quite interesting. And it's especially when people move up in the pool, they got really dizzy, and they looked over the ledge, and then the whole building starts to deconstruct, and people, most of them, it was close to panic. They were like, no fucking way I want to stay in here. While I had none of the theater designers with no VR experience with that reaction, so that was quite amazing. So that shows how difficult or how important the physical setup is, and how important it is that you take the physical body as part of the design, and how careful you have to be in designing that, especially of course for people who are not used to be in VR.
I wonder if sand.
You guys probably won't get sick, but still.
I wonder if sand can be used to get people more introduced to VR, so they can. Because I mean, that definitely seemed like an interesting thing to try and replicate, if nothing else, to see if the sand does help, like as a replicatable case.
Now, sorry, go.
No, I'm actually, my students, they're going to work in 2 days in a large studio. We're going to use motion capture, and we want to literally experiment with physical textures, like different textures, like different kind of textures with bare feet. Also, how does it feel if you need to literally climb physical objects, if you have to go up a physical ladder? What if you need to jump off a physical ledge and then really fall to like some cushioning, hopefully? Just really... really connect in a way the physical to the virtual space, and see what the boundaries are, and how suggestion works and things like that. Yeah. Sorry, Amy, you wanted to.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's cute because one of the therapies that's recommended by neurologists for people with balance dysfunction is to go and walk on the beach as much as possible on unstable
really?
intentionally.
Wow.
And
there you go.
They believe that helps you compensate and rehabilitate. So there's definitely some powerful literature and anecdotal stuff to support that.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mostly read articles more from the psychology department, and that was less physical. It's more about notions of embodiment in relation to identity. But they also mentioned, like, I forgot his name anyway. They already mentioned that there's this like very physical process and this cognitive process being in conflict all the time. So your brain, of course, knows it's not real, while your body screams it's real, responding in all sorts of ways. And that, for me, as a theater maker, is like super interesting, of course, because with theater you do the same. You make imaginative worlds, you understand it's fake, and still people have very real experiences. And to play with that, what is real and what's not, and also the reality of the theater itself. That's mixed reality, I guess. So
one interesting thing would be is that one of my research found out that in the 1800s VR was first used in theater. That's where the word VR came from. That's like the oldest. It was used in theater in France. So that would be something interesting for you. Yeah.
Nice.
They said it was not real. Everything's like visual. It was more visual. So it's like a virtual reality. It's not real.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. What's your exhibition ticketed, or how was it funded? Or some of that equipment looks pretty expensive down there, all the yoke lights and video projectors and things. Oh, he's gone.
He's like, I didn't want to answer. Enough questions.
That's how I feel when I'm asked about finances too. Nothing.
That looks like a $500,000 budget, so I wonder where that comes
I thought that was a feature.
Maybe he'll be back.
It is.
It's a feature.
You stunned him.
He was stuttering a little bit too with his model. So
yes.
It could have been like
I can't imagine having just a VR space where you are physically jumping down a ledge and you have a virtual environment that is one-to-one mapped to that virtual edge.
Yeah, it would be a different experience.
Imagine how surreal that would be to actually jump down a 3-foot ledge or whatever.
I love your avatar, man. Mark.
It was made by Alex from Alaska.
19 people.
Or I think he assembled it. Sorry, I'm doing cameraman right now for the recording.
Oh, yep, sorry.
That's impressive.
So I was going to ask a question regarding...
Yeah, we're not even on optimized avatars, so it's great.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was ticketed, the experience was paid, or whether you had some government funding or something. Because the 360 pictures down there suggest you had some expensive equipment.
Yeah, well, so the whole Prague Quadrennial is like a symposium exhibition thing that you buy a ticket for, and then you pay a ticket for the whole, all the venues and all the lectures and the exhibitions and stuff. So then you could. Sorry.
You might be desynced.
Oh, so you would pay like a ticket for the whole full Prague Quadrennial. This particular project was sponsored by a lot of technical companies like Roby. And it's really funny because the artistic director of the festival, she went to talk to Roby and she said, yeah, we might need some equipment. And they're like, yeah, sure, we got some in stock and you can use it. They never anticipated this project to be as large. So at some point, I think we basically took all the stock they had, both in Prague and Germany, and basically put it in one building. Because I mean, the movie that we watched doesn't do justice to the full setup. I mean, they had like moving heads. I mean, at least like 30 to 40 moving heads, like theater lights that they can move around the whole light show. They had like 4 serious projectors in the space, and then we of course had our equipment for the VR. But it was really like partly company sponsored, partly government subsidized, and partly paid by tickets for the overall festival. Yeah. But don't forget, we weren't paid anything, so we did it really from love, and our hours have not been paid, so all the money went basically to the venue and the equipment. It's fine. I mean, for me it's fine, at least.
You didn't have to pay your drinks, did you?
Yes, also, unfortunately, I had to pay my drinks as well.
But
in Prague, it's not so bad. It's actually, their beer is excellent and not that expensive. So there you go.
Not too bad.
So would an event like this have been shut down by COVID, and are they not currently shut down by COVID, or?
Well, their festival, of course, is once every 4 years, so we need to see in 2 years or so. But a lot of VR festivals, as you know, have now gone online. I mean, I was about to present on Laval Virtual in France. Didn't happen. VR Days right now, it's going to be online. VR Hamburg was fully in Museum of Other Reality. So, everybody's migrating now to these online platforms. I think they're actually now also building platforms specifically for like VR exhibitions and conferences. And I keep shouting to everybody, Neos, come to Neos. But you have to understand that their requirements are so different. I mean, Laval Virtual has 10,000 visitors. Now, I don't know, Nex, how optimized you are by now, but you can imagine that, of course, needing to facilitate such an amount of people with some sort of seamless experience, which is almost impossible to do anyway. Having all those people having the right equipment, understanding how to navigate everything. I mean, that's
a lot of it's for the future, because even you said yourself, a lot of people, they get nauseous. Imagine immersing that person into a degree that's, to where they feel natural in their body, where they don't have nausea, where they don't have problems looking down at their hands, and they're not having to have controllers, which they're not used to because they don't play video games, but they do know how their hands work, and they can just like reach down and move around stuff, feel haptics through haptic vests. So, as time goes on, there's going to be more and more of that, to where people can immerse themselves into a virtual experience, to where they don't, lead out to.
Very true. But I think, and also you can imagine if you're doing now I'm in a way doing a talk. If I would do a PowerPoint here, you can of course wonder why do that in a fully immersive environment, right? So of course it's also certain environments are best equipped to have certain experiences or facilitate certain types of experiences. But yeah, I mean, the whole COVID period, like from March till now, has been super interesting. Following what people were trying to do and translate into online platforms is very interesting. And I mean, I've been advocating for Neos a lot in all those platforms, and more people start to get curious about it. So
Well, the thing is, this even feels way more than something than just a PowerPoint, because now it almost feels kind of like, even with you showing us around in the environment, it feels like a field trip. And a field trip is always more exciting. Like, even when you're like young inside of like elementary school, you think, oh, field trip? That sounds great, right? You know, so that's how VR can kind of feel like, and it's only gonna get better for the hardware. That's what I'm saying. It's like the emergence of it. It's really amazing to be in a time where all of us know about VR and are inside of it early, because it's going to affect the future in a dramatic way as time goes on. So
I agree, and I think from my field in the arts, we talk about creating immersive experiences, and then to connect that to physical spaces is still a possibility. I'm now so happy with the WebSockets and dynamic variables. Cecil helped me out like last night, and I showed it to my students today. We're now connecting physical spaces to Neos, and we're getting very close to building very interesting experiences and installations. So I can have people either being at home, connecting some of their space to whatever space, but also people in a theater can connect. For that is of course fantastic. And I have to say that the teaching so far, I see them every week for 2 hours in Neos. It's seamless. It's just a joy. And actually, they're taking me on a field trip. They're taking me through all their sketches and worlds, and keep unpacking stuff and trying it out. So I feel like a student by now. It's just fantastic.
Nice. Did you want to ask something earlier, Andrew?
I was going to say regarding the wireless VR endurance, the issue with the batteries with the 5 Pros, it's somewhat outside their design scope. But have you considered using Quests with something like virtual desktop and external battery packs? So I've been testing one myself, and you get roughly 15 to 20 hours on one charge wirelessly, which is obviously great if you're tired of having to cycle through batteries, and of course those cost a fortune as well, and it can be a relatively cheap option, and if you got the setup for it, it seems to work quite well.
No, I agree, and I mean, but this is also, of course, things are progressing so fast now, because don't forget, this exhibition was almost 2 years ago. Then the Quest was in no way in a state of being, doing the
Quest Link wasn't there.
And I mean, we were having like 4 4K 360 stereoscopic videos running at the same time in the engine.
You don't even want to. This isn't running on the Quest. This is using virtual desktop to stream. So you're running standard PC VR. So you've got the full experience still. So you're not.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. With Shadow Tech, this isn't even in my actual PC. I'm not like on a Shadow PC.
Yes, you use
with the virtual desktop or whatever it means. Yes, exactly. Was not as good 2 years ago, I have to say.
No, it's had a lot of improvement since then. So
that and that Quest 2 is coming out very cheap, I'm sure. But can that be used in education? I was hearing something about the fact of it using some forms of advertisement that wasn't able to, but I don't know if that was just a rumor or not.
Well, that's there's an element to the Quest which is affordability, which of course is for education is the selling pitch. So all my students are running around now with tethered Quests and stop connected Quests, because it's just affordable. If you have a class of 20 students, you cannot say let's all have them 5 Pros, or indexes. It's unaffordable. But the fact is, I find it very problematic that they need now a Facebook account, and everything that they're doing is now basically being monitored and data logged and all that stuff. So I think from an ethical point of view, as an institute, we really have to rethink whether that is a pathway we want to go into.
It's very true.
It comes with a different kind of price.
School, we are about to order about a bunch of VR headset. And the Quest 2 was automatically, put aside because it was a Facebook, product, and we are going to go with the HTC Reverb. just for the fact that
interesting.
and I was even when I was student, to have to use a Facebook product because of concern about privacy and data harvesting.
Yes, exactly.
Which is very important on my side too. I think that privacy is very important for whatever the user is having for whatever they're having for it. Yeah, 100%. Privacy is incredibly important. And selling that out for just a couple $100, that can be the bit.
I guess I'll be the guinea pig.
There will be other competitors that can actually be on the
I'm
market.
already the guinea pig. I already have a quest.
My university, we have 16 Quest 2 on the way.
Routing or something so that you can release it from
every Android phone, right?
Just hack a Quest 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds good to me.
I technically already modded my Quest 2.
1, I think it's mostly the Quest 2 of where they're
side quest.
Well, Quest 1 also is now
Like you can install games using an app called SideQuest and install the games with Quest 2 and play them wirelessly. Like Pavlov, for example.
Oh, really?
That's what I did.
Every Oculus device has every Oculus device. Yeah, the regular Rift the other day kicked me out.
Yeah, you can do that if you have a Quest or a Quest 2.
That wasn't the case of that being that would have probably been your perfect headset right there because it does have, that new Snapdragon chip as well as a very high resolution display in comparison to the other ones that are on the market and for
only in the menus for now.
$600. If it was like a normal company, it would be charging probably $600 for that headset, but because of
I noticed we've now got, I think, above 20 people in the world. How are people's frames doing? Do you want us to try and swap to some?
24. I have 20 frames.
You got 19.
Okay, but it's
37 frames.
30 frames.
I think most of us are used to it at this point.
Sometimes my experience.
As long as there's no jittering. It's because of all the people here in the map we're on.
I have microphones. You'd be surprised how much Chrome takes up. You would be surprised.
60 photos and all of the other stuff that's down there.
Yeah. Why don't I close up the building so it comes back to its original state, and then of course you can look at the photos and stuff. I think that's a good idea, and have little conversations with smaller groups. Yeah, why not? Yeah. I'll just
we're having an exhibition kind of. This is 22 people come to visit your exhibition.
Excellent.
Is this world?
This is the opening, actually. I've not such a large group of people, so we need champagne. But well, there you go. I'll just close the building up, and then we can do that. That sounds great.
Is this world going to be published afterwards?
Is there a floor? Okay.
Look at him lag. Did you see him? 1, 2.
Oh. I didn't know that was supposed to happen. Wait.
Whoa.
Hey, closed it.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh. We weren't expecting that one. You thought he was going to close the world, huh?
This is actually my first time stopping here. This looks very interesting indeed.
No clip.
Wait, there's anchors here?
There we go. I'll be sitting down and then.
Hey, good use of the shadows too.
This is interesting.
Joris. Joris. Are you going to have this world published after the fact?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Okay. Because I think I'm reaching the limit of what I can record in terms of storage, probably. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. It needs a bit of optimization still, for sure.
Well, I more mean for the meeting recording.
How do these videos at the end work? Are they videos with an alpha channel so they can be transparent?
It's actually the texture itself. It's like it's an additive texture. So it doesn't have any. It's just multiplying in a way the pixels with whatever is behind it.
Yeah, it is a party. What are you talking about, dude?
Welcome to the videos. Additive is always just transparent. So it's pretty easy to make things like that.
This looks
Exactly,
cool,
and it
though.
works really well because it comes quite close actually to how it felt in space.
With the actual projectors, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, this looks really
The decision to make this like a gallery of kind of work in progress bits rather than just trying. Because if I was building it, my first thought would be let's try and make it as
Or you could constantly like walk
Really, if the
on
real
it,
thing
and
is
then you'd be
possible.
like walking on
But
this
I
infinite
guess
beach,
you
or
kind
like
of
running on the
embrace the
infinite
fact
beach.
that
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's still going to be unsatisfying. So
Exactly.
Don't touch that, please.
use it almost for a teaching thing instead of
Don't.
trying
That's
to
the meeting
recreate
recording camera.
a shadow of the real experience.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's an
Yes.
interesting decision. Yeah.
And that's to use like the vibe.
I know that you had a few students that were actually in the process of making different worlds and experiments. I actually went and sent you a friend request because I'd be 100% into checking out what people are doing, and if anybody needs any bug testing,
You're volunteering. I'm not sure if I'll just check if I have you on my friend. Okay, there you go. Excellent.
Yeah, I'd be 100%
I'll let them
down to
know.
see what everybody's doing.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
If anyone wants something broken, I almost always find a way. I almost always Zai can vouch.
Yeah. I remember also some of your students were wanting to talk to some people in the US. I don't know how much of a response they got, but now might be a good time to advertise that if they're still looking for people to...
They have done their user research already, so they did some data tests already with some of the users, which is really nice. Yeah, that worked really well. People are really responsive in the
Yeah, Pinocchio, man. It's been forever since we
Wow, it's amazing how many people showed up, actually. It's just an interesting experience, because I've been in this space a lot.
Now it's almost a mini like representation. We need some more people in here, but it'll be almost like a mini representation of everything, you know, as if you were back there at the, at the venue.
I've never seen.
Yeah, but it comes closer to the actual experience of having people roaming around and trying things out, so that's really nice. Yeah,
it's big enough to actually.
Yeah, previously we would need optimized avatars, remember?
Yeah, it's the same,
Yeah.
but then in real life.
Oh man. I got to go soon, man. I don't know how long does this thing last, but since everyone's here, let's just hang out.
Like
it's like
environment, or even just a development that you can completely replace with Neos.
Yeah, but did you get Discord? My Discord, like, we gotta have a meeting soon too.
Well, I think the performance of 4K stereoscopic videos being on a local drive is probably a good idea in comparison to running it through an internet connection. Also, the internet venue was really bad, so we had to have some sort of standalone version running, and I'm not experienced with Neos whether that is easy to set up. I know you can have like a local area network thing, but that would definitely be something I need to figure out first. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe will be
to without internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We're using it for a standalone experience, so we're.
Did you see all the photos also? Because I combined photos of the actual experience with also the build-up, which I thought was sort of nice to get a feel.
You combine 360 photos of the actual build.
Yeah, and I made them at the venue, and I tried to place them exactly in the place where I took the photo, and I was surprised how well the blending works, actually. Actually, that was a bit of a a happy surprise.
I was surprised as well,
Yeah. Are you Dutch, by the way?
Yeah.
I thought so. I thought so.
Your name. Yeah. It's really Dutch.
Surrounded by Dutch people.
Yeah, it's so funny. The very first person I met in Neos in March was Alex Derpyfox, and he lives in Utrecht, and so do I. It's so ridiculous.
That's good.
I speak Dutch, but I'm not Dutch.
All right.
Well.
Hey Zizzle, are we about done meeting-wise then? Do you think? Because we kind of entered presentation mode. Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're probably done. Might want to talk about future meetings and stuff, but I think that's probably it in terms of major content.
Okay. No, just
I think
whenever I should stop the
recording. It was a good kickoff, but we still need to have a meeting on how do we proceed, what are the the wishes and the interest right now.
Yeah.
But you see that how many people showed up, that there's definitely It's a good start again.
I guess that's the thing. If you leave the world open public, then you get the snowball effect. Once you hit a certain threshold, everyone wonders what's going on, so they start trying to
Yeah.
This world is popular. Let me join on it.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing like other like presentations or meetings and whatnot.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. Every time I teach and I forget to close the world, people show up because they think that something's happening there. I have to go there.
Yeah.
It's pretty much why we set up a user with it all the time.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I'd be about that.
Yeah, like the role it doesn't mean that you are an educator, it's literally just for anyone who wants to get pinged.
Get notified. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, so DM shifting. Alright, I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was just saying, Enrique was asking, like, if he wants to get pings for this kind of thing, if you DM Shifty and ask them to give you the educational science role in Discord, then, like, if I make a meeting post, then I usually ping that role afterwards, so you'll get those.
I was debating, since I made like the electricity demo and I wanted to like create a little bit more about it, but it's like then I forgot about it. Because VRsys actually came up with to me like, hey, can I have that? I'm like, right, yeah, I didn't put this in my public folder or anything. How it is. I don't know if it still gets used. Probably not.
I think I tried playing with it before I knew who you were, and I was just like, I'm dumb.
It's for learning. It's for learning basic electric circuits. Basic, very basic.
I know, but no.
It'll be fun to see that.
I mean, pretty much now, since I know more about, well, logics, all of that, I probably can do some little more.
Yeah, because we did a couple of sessions earlier in the year where we had like 2 or 3 little presentations by people. Usually where the world was there, and we spent maybe half an hour in the world going through it, having a look at it, discussing like what people had learned during the building of it, what they had thought about how VR would be useful, and then like some feedback from people, just as a way for everyone to learn like better ways of conveying information in VR. So yeah, I think that could maybe fit into one of those sessions, unless you thought you could do something larger as well. Yeah.
I mean,
So what do we want to do meeting schedule-wise?
Yeah, so the other thing I had at the back of my mind was it might be nice to revisit the tutorial world now it's being published.
Yeah.
I think there are more interesting conversations to be had there, I thought.
Yeah, we can. Not today, because we're running a bit low on time, but the next one, yeah, we can. It's still definitely a work in progress, because some work on it got stalled, but yeah, we can go over what's happened with it and kind of the state that it is in and lessons learned with it.
That'll be cool.
By the way, when I need to translate it?
That is one of the things that got stalled.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so translations got... I can go over this right now if you want, but translations got stalled because Neos got translation system support, but it's not... It's only for the built-in strings, and I haven't heard anything about the timeline for us being able to set up translations for our own custom content. So I'm waiting to hear back on that so that I don't integrate an entire translation system, and then the next day it's, oh, we got native translations in. And it's like, that was only like a week of effort gone. So it probably won't actually be a week of effort, but...
There's already a component called locale driver, string locale driver, but it's only for specific strings.
Yep, that's the
like,
problem.
For example, if you have like specific ones like equip or tool or these things that are already in there and you want to reference them, you can, but not add new ones.
Piecing together our strings to be like homunculi of partially translated and not translated doesn't feel like a good solution. So it's kind of like we did a calculation. There's about 200, maybe 250 strings that need to be translated in that world. So going through and setting up all the translation systems would probably honestly like take. I could probably do that in about a day. But that's a day that I can do that's completely mind-numbing, that could be completely deprecated. It might be in a format that is unusable for the new system completely. Or I could just figure out when they're actually going to do it and see if that time investment's worthwhile. So that's what the delay was for translation, is that I need to get more information, which is on me. I need to poke at Fruix or Coffee or someone and try and get a hard time. But as soon as it gets out, I will let all the translators know that it is good to go. And also, I believe they're currently rebuilding the tutorial experience as well for native Neos. So the world itself might get completely deprecated.
I don't know the...
We also, you know, we are with Russian community wants to build a Russian hub for Russians, and there will be tutorials for the news. So it will be like in a Stalker or Metro 2033 style. That look like one.
Interesting.
But by the way, about games, I built that shotgun with the pain of the neck.
Right. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Alright. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I accidentally spawned it. But it's working.
Nice. Congratulations. Probably don't fire that in here.
Well, I will not. Wait, what?
Oh no, this is massive. Don't fire that.
A lot of people may not be expecting to hear gunfire in here, so that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. But with the Turtle Frank, we made 3 modes of fire. 4 barrel, 2 barrels, and 1 barrel.
Nice.
At the same time.
Excited for the meeting.
It's like,
Frank knows how to make guns, so he's a good person to talk to.
was there any other
Really interesting.
topics we need to bring up, or schedule, or?
Yeah,
So we can arrange possibly a revisit of the tutorial world, because I know you've been making a logics tutorial world as well. Is that in a state where you could have an interesting conversation around, or do you want to let
I
that
could go over
sit for a
both.
while? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we could pencil that in for maybe a week's time.
Yeah, we could be good. There's some touch-ups I want to do on that I've been meaning to do on normal tutorial anyway, so that'd be a good amount of time to do them.
Okay, yeah, that would be what, evening slot for you then?
Probably. So about any time from now to about 7 hours from now. So when this previous meeting started to about 7 hours past that.
Okay, yeah, well, we can, I'll DM you the timings and things like that as well. But,
I like differential time because time zone doesn't matter. So it's, I could say, oh, 7 o'clock my time, but it's no one fucking knows that. So it's just time window.
No, that's sensible because I think. Yeah, I think that would be roughly within the correct window. I think it should be good.
Yeah, just contact me. I'll figure it out.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So
I know
that's
you guys published the... I'm sorry, desync there. I don't know, you had published the tutorial world, so I'll have to go there and see how smart I am.
Please give feedback. Because keep in mind, if you have a question on something, that means that it's something that someone else will get completely lost on.
I'll probably after here, I'm more than likely going to go straight to that world, check it out.
If you want, I would be curious to get your impressions on it because you gave really good feedback about the previous one, so I can just go through that with you as well.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to.
All right,
Definitely.
I will stop this recording so that we're good. We'll do next week, sometime Wednesday, some hours. Is there any other points of business that need to be taken care of today?
I think those were the main ones, so feel free to wander off. I'll probably go and have a chat to Hamish as well and just see where they're at.
All right, I'm just going to close the recording. So that was...